Auburn's been killing it in the transfer portal. Their biggest weakness, well, it's really been addressed. Zac Blackerby, Locked On Auburn, joining me here on the show. What's the latest with the Tigers here, Zach? Sounds like the spring transfer portal window has been very kind to Hugh Freeze and company.
Yeah, they've been busy. Spencer, you and I talked after Auburn's A-Day game a few weeks ago. It's like, how do I feel about this team? It's like, well, they need to fix the defensive line. So they go out and add Philip Blidi, the former Texas Tech and Indiana defensive line. He may start at defensive tackle, that 3 technique in this DJ Durkin defense. They go out and get a top nose guard in this portal window, Isaiah Rakes, who was a top guy several years ago, went to Texas A&M, then went to USC just to go through spring, Spencer. That was it. He didn't play at USC.
No, of course not.
Then he entered the portal, and he's got a chance to fight for a starting job. We'll see what happens with that. But then my favorite player in the transfer portal so far, and I know you like him too, Keyron Crawford. Very raw, very explosive edge rusher from Arkansas State. This guy's been playing football for like 5 minutes, Spencer. He didn't start playing football until his senior year of high school. And so what does he do? He becomes one of the better pass rushers in the Sun Belt. And this is the beauty of the transfer portal, right? This is what the transfer portal was supposed to be. You know, maybe you're underlooked coming out of high school. You get it done at the Sun Belt or some other group of 5 conference. And then you say, you know what? I deserve a spot in the SEC. Auburn did this with Jalen McLeod, the transfer from App State a year ago. Well, Jalen McLeod has become one of the best defenders that Auburn has. And now they're going to be able to kind of have bookend pass rushers with Keyron Crawford on the other side.
Yeah, it's a really solid haul of guys to bring in the trenches, and I think there's a balance to it, right? Crawford's a little bit more raw. Philip Blidi, who I've talked about a couple times on the show before, he's the opposite of raw. He may not have the highest ceiling in the world. Yeah. I don't think he's a future first or second round NFL draft pick, but this is a guy going into his, I believe, 5th or 6th year of college football. He's been in weight rooms all that time. He's been on the field. He's been productive at the Power 5 level in the last several seasons. And then you mix in a couple of guys who are maybe not as proven, who are looking for that opportunity to really pop. So how much better does this make Auburn's defense? How much more differently do you view them on that side of the ball?
I think it raises the floor. I think the ceiling is about the same. Maybe Crawford raises the ceiling a little bit just because he is so raw, and you and I really like his upside there. But the upside for Auburn's defensive front, it's still Jalen McLeod, who I think is going to be a crucial part of what Auburn needs to do defensively, but has battled some injuries. Nothing crazy, but something that kind of slows him down, makes him play at 60 or 70% at chunks of the season throughout his career. I think Keldrick Falk, the former 5-star, went through his freshman year and then kind of had a quiet spring where a lot of people expected him to take that big step, but can he play like a 5-star as a sophomore? But really raises the floor, which is essentially what you described with Blidi. And then, you know, Rakes is a guy who's been playing college football for a hot minute as well within the SEC. And so I think Auburn's issue with the defensive line leaving spring was, okay, I think their starters are fine. But if something happens to any of these guys, like, I don't know what they're going to do. They've got a bunch of really talented freshmen, but you don't want to play true freshmen in the SEC unless they're a really special player. And even then, it usually takes them a year to kind of get acclimated, or maybe halfway through their
particularly in the defensive line. Anywhere in the trenches, it's really hard to come in and just contribute at the Power 5 level right away, especially in the SEC or the Big Ten.
Yeah, so what do? They go out and get some older guys to kind of bridge that because they don't want to tick off the young guys, right? Which is kind of, sadly, it's part of the strategy of building a roster. It's like, well, I don't want to go get somebody that'll force one of my talented young guys to leave. So you go and get guys with limited eligibility so you can go to them and say, hey, you're still the future. Don't worry. Your spot for next year is there because he'll be gone. There's no need to worry. Which is fascinating. We can do a whole show on that, Spencer. But yeah, I think the defensive line is certainly better. Auburn's win total, according to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, was listed at 7.5. And I was pretty consistently taking the under on that, thinking Auburn would either win 6 or 7 games. Now I think I'm taking the over. I think Auburn is an 8-4 football team, after the addition of these three guys beefing up that defensive front.
Which game do you look at that was maybe a coin flip, or you didn't feel great about, or not sure if the defense could kind of make that play that these guys could help you kind of get over the top? Which matchup do you look at and go, I feel like with these three defensive line transfers, that's a team that Auburn is now going to have a better chance to beat?
That's interesting. So let's just go through the toss-up games on Auburn's schedule, or at least the games that I think are toss-up games. Auburn will host Oklahoma week 5, week 6. It'll be Oklahoma's first road game in the SEC. And this is a team that's replacing their quarterback, that's replacing all 5 starting offensive linemen. And so you bring in some experienced guys who have played a lot of college football. That could be a potential matchup thing. It's in Jordan-Hare Stadium, so I think that'll help the Tigers there. Other toss-ups down the road, they have back-to-back road trips to Missouri. I don't think they're going to win that game right now. We'll see if they do. Boy, would that be a huge win for Auburn. But going to Lexington to take on the Wildcats the week after that, they're losing a good bit. I think they're going to have to run the football. Some people really like Vandegrift. I'm just not quite there yet, Spencer. So I think that could be a game.
I don't know how you can be anywhere on Brock Vandegrift. Has anyone seen him throw a pass in, like an actual big game setting?
Yeah, but don't you feel like he's been given chances? I don't know. Like, you just never really heard anything about him. But regardless, I think that's going to be a team that's going to have to run the football a lot. Maybe I'll be wrong on that. And then Texas A&M, that's the last big game before they head to Tuscaloosa for the Iron Bowl. And we don't know exactly what this Mike Elko-led team is going to look like, but you got to think in Jordan-Hare Stadium, they're going to want to run the football unless they really figure something out with their passing game, which they might. But those are kind of the toss-up ones to me, and I like Auburn's chances a little bit more in all of those, and all they need to do is win 1 or 2 of those, and it drastically changes their season.
Auburn might not be done in the transfer portal. That they have been rumored to at least get maybe a look, a visit, a conversation, something with Jaden Rashada. Now, I argued on Friday's show last week that Georgia was such a perfect fit, but I've also discussed here on the show that I don't think Auburn is a terrible fit. I think Mississippi State, which is the other school that's been thrown out there, they just had a quarterback enter the transfer portal, by the way, former Vanderbilt QB, who is back into the transfer portal now. We'll see where he ends up. But could you see Auburn getting Jaden Rashada, who's the hottest quarterback commodity in the portal right now?
No, I'm just not buying it. I do think it's interesting that Auburn was kind of on the short list when Hayes Fawcett of On3 made that report. I think it says that maybe Auburn and this coaching staff aren't entirely sold on what to do at quarterback after Peyton Thorne, which I think is interesting. But to me, I just don't see it. I don't fully get that. I think Auburn has some young, talented quarterbacks on campus. This could be the type of thing, though, where they say, hey, just get as many young, talented quarterbacks on campus as possible. And hopefully one of them works out and can possibly put you in a really good situation in 2025. Because from a timing standpoint, path to playing time, it's similar at Auburn as it is to Georgia. Now, the weapons around you at Georgia are better. I don't think there's any arguing that. But you're sitting behind a quarterback that's going to play for 1 more year, and then they're going to be done. So the playing time argument's the same. I don't want to judge the kid. And you and I have talked about this before, Spencer. Like, there's so many different reasons for kids to want to enter the portal and get a fresh start somewhere else. The kind of narrative that's followed Rashada has been he's all about NIL. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's the narrative that's surrounded him.
It's very negative. And why I think Georgia's such a great spot, because if he goes and sits as the backup this year, he gets out of the limelight. This kid has been the focal point of a really negative media cycle since he was 17, 18 years old.
Yeah, and he played 3 games last year, right? He was able to redshirt, so it was less than 4. So, to me, I get it. Regardless of if he goes to Auburn or Georgia or Mississippi State, like, he's probably not playing this year. He missed spring. Like, that'd be a very hard thing for him to pull off. But it'd be a huge deal wherever it is, and you got to think, like, whoever lands the kid, They shelled out some NIL money. So there may be teams that are in this just because they want to flex, Spencer. I think that's a real thing in today's modern age of college football.
It's a curious world indeed, and a lot happens that you just don't know. You don't know why. You don't know how to come together. How do you get in contact with this kid? What coach does he know? What parent reached out? Who's involved? And all that sort of stuff. When we need to get involved with the Auburn Tigers, Zac Blackerby is the only place we go because he hosts Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. Zac, thank you as always, good sir.
Hey, love you a long time.
Likewise, boss man. So I have a question, not for Zac specifically, but did you see what USC did again? I'm doubling down on the Trojans, everybody.